What's up, guys? What's up? Quick disclaimer before it begins. I know this is different than most of the content I create, and while most of my content that I create is,
That's it, Brian? Yes.
but I also have a pretty big spark for philosophy, or at least I used to, and some of the skills have carried over. So if you enjoy this type of content, just let me know. Anyways, let's get into the video. What makes a life worth living? Well, that question is a pretty loaded one, and I don't think there's an objective answer. Like most things, I think that it is a spectrum. You cannot expect someone born in a third world country without financial freedom to have the same life as a millionaire born on an estate in the first world. Yet still, 9 out of 10 times, I'm inclined to say that the poor man lived a better life than the rich man. Well, obviously, I'm speaking like value-wise and not quality of life. Disclaimer though, this goes along with what I was just saying. I think we should establish that different cultures have different values and will judge every person's life differently regardless on if what they have done stays the same. What I may see as a life worth living or a life wasted may be different than what you think, and that does not mean either one of us is necessarily right or wrong. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. Many people often say that they think that they are wasting their lives, but you can't really know that unless you know what a life worth living is first. Whenever people think of a successful life, some people often think of money, fame, houses, cars, and all of these things may be nice on their own, but they are definitely not the only marker of a good life. On the other end of the spectrum, there are people who automatically think family, dog, little house on the prairie. And once again, I think that these things are not necessarily bad, but I don't think that they are the only mark of a successful life. There are also many people who will bring religion or lack thereof into what makes a life successful. And that affects how they act, that affects how they think, and that affects how they live. What makes all these things beautiful, if you think that they are beautiful at least, is that it is self-actualization. In other words, it is them having a dream, goal, or belief, and then making it into fruition, at least for themselves. And in my opinion, if you think that any of these things are beautiful, that is what you are actually attracted to, not the thing in and of themselves. Many more people will say that enjoyment is the true mark of a good life, and that if you enjoyed being alive and you enjoyed what you did during your time alive, then that is how you know that you lived a life worth living. However, if you really wanted to be maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain, firstly, you would be a hedonist. But secondly, drugs, alcohol, men and women, all of these things bring short-term pleasure and oftentimes come with long-term consequences, including harm to your body or others, or the more prominent issue is a general lack of fulfillment. Work without pleasure or pleasure without work, they both lead to the same end. Some people just want to be locked away in rooms private from the world and never have to talk to the world again. And these people are almost universally disliked. Most people see this as a life that is wasted, and it is not something that people should enjoy. And that makes sense. It does nothing for society, and of course society is going to do things that is good for it. It does not bring anybody other than the person enjoyment and is often called a drain, a deadbeat, or a waste. And while I hate society as a whole, generally, that's hard to say. However, I can recognize whenever they are right. And also, I can recognize whenever they bring value. If I live my life based on what society wants, I would hate my life. Most answers I hear revolve around work or pleasure. They value either purpose or enjoyment. You either need to have a strong purpose and fulfill it until you die or get too old to fulfill it, or you need to maximize your own pleasure, and sometimes that looks like work, but at the end of the day, that is not generally what I hear. I also hear a fair amount of people saying that if you don't leave a legacy, or if you don't spend your life helping others, then it was a waste, and you need to dedicate your life to the world around you. Well, legacies fall, empires crumble, empires crumble, and eventually people you love and help will die. But to me, that does not make those things worthless. It does not make sacrifice worthless. It is not worth more because it doesn't end. And in fact, just because everybody will die one day and it will all end, I think that makes it more enjoyable. Like the time that you have here and the time that everybody has here is valuable. Summer is only beautiful because we know that winter is coming. And like most things, I think that a good life is somewhere in the middle. Chris McCandless, he was a man who traveled the country in the United States in search of a life isolated in Alaska. One of his final words, whenever he realized that he was dying, and in the winter, uh, was, "Happiness is only real when it is shared." And I think that's where the core of it comes. Life is not something that can be collapsed in a 10 or 20-minute YouTube video. But here's where I'm going to make my claim. Those who dedicate their entire life to work become a part of society, a cog in machine, and often neglect their duties to their family, friends, or, people around them. And I'm not talking about most people who just work a 9 to 5 and live on the weekends. I'm talking about people who make their entire identity around their job. And those who do not have some sort of work, and I'm not talking about just a job in the traditional sense, are oversaturated in pleasure, and oftentimes do not realize that the happiness, quote unquote, that they are feeling is not really happiness but a temporary escape. I'm not here to tell people what they can and can't do or what they should or should not want to do. However, I'm trying to warn people that endless money, drugs, sex, it is not fulfilling. It is only fulfilling of their basic desires. And that is temporarily numbing reality, but true happiness does not come from escape from the sadness or the pain, but it is an acceptance that it is always going to be there, and that it can create an even more beautiful platform for good. Those who dedicate themselves to a god, whichever one that may be, they choose to put faith into something bigger than themselves. They kick the can down the road, so to speak. They defer their happiness, sadness, purpose, all of it to a higher power. And this is not necessarily a bad thing, and oftentimes I think that it's a good thing. Depending on the religion and the people within it, it can create some real good and real change in the world. That being said, though, it can also create real pain and real suffering for the world. I'm not telling anybody that their religion is just a cop-out, or that they should not follow what they believe in. However, the interactions with humans that you have is a direct correlation to your relationship with God. In other words, if your religion creates suffering in the world around you, either there is a problem with your relationship with God, or there's a problem with your God. But ultimately, people is what gather it all together. The reason shut-ins are almost universally shamed, the reason that people want fame, status, and money, the reason people join groups, communities, and religion, and the reason people all throughout history have tried to rule over, live for, and die for people is because it is all people. That is, people around you is what makes a good life. Some people want to show off their vast wealth to the world and create an identity surrounded by money and material objects. But in the end, it is worthless if you have nobody to spend it on. Some people want to bury themselves in work so they can afford to put food on the plates of people in their lives, which is beautiful and noble, but they also need you home to enjoy you and to get to know you as much as they need to eat. I'm not saying that you should stop working or that you should feel guilty for not being able to be there if your situation does not allow you to be there with them. Your sacrifice is not wasted if you're not there with them, if you can't be there with them. It is real and it is noble. I'm talking about the people who are intentionally staying later than they have to, intentionally burying themselves in work. You are making a mistake. Your team is more important than the mission. Your family, your friends, even your enemies, your happiness is only real when others are there to see and experience it with you. You can summit the mountain. You can travel the world. You can do anything you want to do. Have all the stories and pictures you could possibly want. But it will all be worthless if you are not able to tell the story to people you care about. If you're not able to show them the photo album. Think about it. If you were the only person on Earth, the way you live your life would drastically change. The point of achievements is to be loved and known by those around you, and without those people, what is the point of even doing anything? Helping those around you, creating a better world for those you don't even know because they are human, it fulfills something that you don't even realize in the moment. Feeding somebody who is starving or giving your time to people who have nobody, That is honoring your God if you believe in them. That is being a hero. Spending your nights on the game with the boys is not a waste of time just because you are escaping the world and, playing a game. Going out and playing sports with people, especially people that you barely know, and developing new bonds. Working in the fields, literally or metaphorically. Suffering with people, loving people, having a family, having a day one. All of these things have value because of other people. Yeah, look, death will come for us all, but whenever it comes, we do not have to face it alone. If they wish for you, then listen. Happiness, suffering, purpose, pleasure, everything. It is made better with people that you can love and trust. Finding real bonds means you will never fight alone. All through human history, statistics, religion, culture, connection, it is something that we have to get comfortable with. I'm not touching on what real love looks like in this video, but if you want a life worth living, then don't be distant. The love of people is a gift. Discard your own pride and attachment to objects, soften your heart, heal the wounds keeping you back from loving others. Love and help as many people as you can, even if you could only just save one. If you're going to become strong, do it to protect the ones you care about. If you're going to be rich, do it to spend on those you love. Be present. Be the change you want to see in the world, even if you'll be punished for it. Be a hero.